Good morning, everyone. It's 8 a.m. Central Time, and we're happy to have you back here for our third Thursday meeting. We've renamed this to the Illinois chapter edition of the NABIP Pulse. Several other states are calling their version of our third Thursday ledge meeting NABIP Pulse. So, in terms of branding and recognition for legislative, we are on that bandwagon. I think it sounds catchy. NABIP Pulse works for me. Um, we will be open from 8 to 9 a.m. Central Time today. If we end early, that's all right. But we do have a full docket and a couple of guest speakers with us today. Today there is no sponsor, so there is no CE for this 1 hour segment. If you know someone who's interested in sponsoring, please connect them with me, Sarah Walker-Height, President-elect of the Illinois NABIP chapter. Be happy to talk through that opportunity with them. Just a quick review of our agenda this morning. I know we've got several other people logging in and hopping on. We will do a quick review of the convention. NABIP had their national convention in Chicago. Thank you for those that came. Enjoyed seeing everyone in person all in one spot. So we'll do a quick recap. Our guest speakers are talking about the NABIP PAC. There's a federal PAC, and then Evan will also be sharing what the Big I has for a state PAC, since NABIP Illinois does not have a state PAC. So I've asked Evan to mention that as well. Then, of course, we'll go on to our state ledge update, federal ledge update, and any working group updates that we may have, along with announcements from our local chapters and meetings that they have coming up. All right, jumping into convention recap. Again, huge thank you to our members who showed up. Thank you, thank you, thank you for helping out in the hallways and directing traffic and pointing people in the right direction from out of town. You made Illinois look good. Nothing but positive feedback about our team of volunteers. So again, we appreciate you so much for that. The venue, the hotel was not anything that we picked, that our team picked. It was decided upon by NABIP and the budget that was available for convention. So any of you that were there recognize it's sort of like a bad video game sometimes. You go up, down, turn all the way around, go through a tunnel, go back up, go back down. And we certainly got our steps in, but was a welcome break, I think, from sitting. I enjoyed all the information, but getting up and being able to walk around was a great way to break up all the sitting that you do at these conventions. So we had a series of educational tracks. Also had awards and recognition focused on tips for running your business, trends and challenges, pioneering. Beyond the status quo was another track, or innovative solutions, touched on AI. There's more information on this on the NABIP LinkedIn page and also nabip.org. And you'll see here on the right-hand side of the page, there is a new version of our NABIP magazine. They're calling it BIP, BIP. And they've told us that this will be a national magazine, and they have a goal to get this on newsstands for the public to purchase. So very excited to see that. The magazines, I've always enjoyed getting those. If you are a member and you are not getting your magazine every month, you should have received the one pictured here already in late June, early July. If you have not received that and you are a NABIP member, they likely do not have your correct mailing address. Please send me your correct mailing address. or log into NABIP.org in your member account and profile. You can update your mailing address there. But we want to make sure that you're getting this information. There's also an online version you can click on and flip through. Again, a lot of great information and updates in the magazine. Got to meet the editor of the new magazine as well. She was at convention, have her contact information. So if you have something that you would like to include in that magazine, I'm happy to connect you with her. In the bottom right hand of the screen, you'll notice NABIP Member App Store. Now, this is not an app store like we're used to thinking of, at least in my mind, where you go to your app store and download this particular NABIP member app. There is a NABIP app that is different from what they're referring to. So you actually get to this either from nabip.org or you can go to nabip.app/apps. And we'll be going into this more in future segments and at your local meetings, your local chapter meetings. But there's a lot of great information, tips, tools, AI that we can utilize as members to make our lives easier, help enhance our business and our communication. So thank you, Robert. Yes, we did great with awards and selling cups. We did sell some cups. They were our NABIP laser etched tumblers. The kids coordinated for us. It was a fundraiser for the Grant Smith Memorial Scholarship. And we did sell, I think it was 42 tumblers there. So that was amazing. Every little bit helped to boost that scholarship account. We also at Convention welcomed our new National Board of Trustees. Alicia Rydell, who was on the front of the cover of the magazine we saw on the last page, is our president. Susan Ryder is our president-elect. We've had Susan over a few times for both state and I believe Heart of Illinois had her recently. She's just right over in Indiana. So a lot of great information. She is an active poster on LinkedIn. So if you have not friended Susan yet, I encourage you to do so on LinkedIn. David Smith is moving up from treasurer to vice president. Michael Walker Sr. is moving into the treasurer role. Stephanie Berger, secretary. And of course, Eric Holsdorf is our immediate past president. Amazing job. He was counting down the minutes to handing the gavel over to Alicia. Bless his heart. He did a wonderful job. And we appreciate all of our volunteers in the organization. As you can probably imagine, it's a heavy lift for these national folks and a lot of time that they devote to the association and the industry. So we thank them for that. Alicia has also announced that she's planning to do I believe it's a first Monday open forum. So again, nabip.org, look at the calendar. She's going to be posting that there with links to sign up. But it's basically time for our members to connect with the president of the Board of Trustees. And she will be holding that again on a regular basis for us. There's also, as part of the member app store, again, mentioned in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a feedback button that you can click on to provide member feedback, and it goes into a dashboard that Alicia and her team are utilizing to organize all of our feedback and suggestions. So again, we'll be going further into the app and what's available, how to use it as a member, and all of those variations at future meetings. As Robert mentioned, we did a great job with awards. Thank you so much to our awards chair, Heather John, for organizing all of our submissions and keeping us on track to make sure we're in compliance with best practices as prescribed by NABIP National. The Illinois chapter brought home the Landmark Award, the State Website Award, Blue Ribbon of Excellence Award, most new members for a medium state chapter, and highest growth rate for a medium state chapter. They also awarded me the Presidential Citation Award. Thank you so much, guys, for the nomination. And Heart of Illinois also was awarded Youth Better and the Robert W. Osler Professional Development Award. Now, the Professional Development Award and the Peace Center Award, I know that Heart of Illinois has been owning that for several years in a row. So great job, guys. Way to be live the example and excuse me, be a pace setter for everyone involved. I know that Region 3 holds up leadership, maybe part of Illinois on a regular basis. Some of the new ideas that they're working on. Feel free to reach out to Missy or Heather, and they're happy to share some of those tips with you. All right, it's my pleasure to welcome Mike Embry, our NABIP Region 3 PAC Chair, and Jerry Jackson, our Region 3 PAC Chair. Jerry is our Illinois PAC Chair, so I'll get that right. I haven't had any coffee yet this morning, as you can tell. And I've got Mike's information next to Jerry. So again, apologies for that. I will update that in the chat for you guys. But without further ado, I will turn things over to Mike and Jerry.
Well, good morning. I'm here.
Good morning.
Well, I don't have any actual update to offer. This is Jerry, but Mike has put the word into the national staff to be a little more supportive in getting timely reports out. I'll be following up on that, and as soon as I do, I'll send those out to the various chapters within the state.
Thank you so much. I know some of us were set up on the regular auto draft for PAC, and the federal PAC auto draws, sometimes it seems like they're expired almost. So that's in reference to some of the reports that Jerry's talking about. I believe some of us have fallen off unintentionally. So once Jerry has that report from national, he'll be sending out some reminders to folks. Again, I know a lot of us unintentionally have dropped off and we just didn't receive any type of notification. So where does your PAC, your federal PAC contributions go? First of all, the NABIP PAC board selects candidates based on their position on key health issues. And again, this is at the national level, NABIP PACs at the national level. Then the ideal candidate would be someone who believes in a privately run healthcare system, understands the importance of health insurance agents and brokers, supports legislation that advances the interests of consumers, agents, and brokers. And why does it matter? Your contribution allows us to communicate to policymakers how their decisions impact our industry and our clients. Gets us in the room, helps get us in the room with the right people, as does our lobbyists, of course. So again, this NABIP PAC is at the federal level. You certainly can sign up at any time. There's more information at nabippac.nabip.org, or you can scan the QR code on the page. I apologize, I don't see Mike Embry on at the moment. We may have gotten a call. If he joins us later, we'll plug him in at the end for any additional comment. As mentioned, there's also a state PAC. I will turn things over to Evan now to talk a little bit about state PAC for a moment and continue with our legislative updates.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. Yes, would love to talk about the PACs. At first, I want to tell just a little bit about interesting. I forget the legislator's name in off the top of my head, but he was an individual that had been elected in 2018, and that's pretty much the year that towards the end of the year, I started on with NABIP and the rest of the associations as the lobbyist. And he had said that he was his license plate was the absolute last. It was, I think in the like 188. And by summer of this year, he was down to, I think, 45. That's just how much turnover has happened in the General Assembly, in the Illinois General Assembly this year, or over the last 5-6 years, which is pretty remarkable that there has been such turnover from a newly elected legislator in 2018 all the way to 2024, and they've jumped over 140 legislators that have been the turnover rate between the General Assembly. I just thought that was very interesting, and really speaks to the point of why the PACs are so important, because obviously we're no longer seeing the career politician. It's very few of them are left. From the days where Phil, who had my job previously, there were legislators who were there for 20, 30 years, and they've established and had a great rapport with those individuals for such a long time. They knew where they were, how they could get in the door, and where their position was. It can always lean on them for that. Now when you have such freshman, sophomore legislators who are just getting their feet wet, and they're introducing legislation and they're not quite understanding of all the issues, which comes from being a tenured politician, is understanding more and more about the issues. And it really is important to gain access and establish relationships with those freshman, sophomore legislators, because they're really they have the majorities now. It's really no longer of like I said, there's no more there are fewer and fewer career politicians, and it really is important to get access and establish relationships with those freshman, sophomore legislators, as well, obviously, as well as the caucus leaders and those that affect our industry the most. So NABIP Illinois members are always welcome to donate to the Big I Illinois State PAC. It is something that does benefit NABIP on the state level if you do contribute, but you can also utilize some of the funds that we have at the Big I for attending fundraisers and establishing locally, with your legislator, and making sure that you can be a resource to them, because that is very, very important. Not only is it important for me to have a relationship and your legislative team to have a relationship with legislators, but it is important for individuals in across Illinois and across the association to establish relationships with their legislators, because we want them to call you or call me when there are bills that get introduced and that are being worked on, and they need some additional support and understanding the effects, and what better way to do it than calling your local expert within the industry. So that's really is important to start, or to not to start, but to continue our work in developing relationships with every legislator, and making sure that we're having those conversations locally to really hone in on a better relationship with those legislators. Now I'll go right into before I get into some of the legislation from the end of session and this year, I do want to highlight that we had a meeting with Director Morgan Winters, who's head of the state-based exchange at the Department of Insurance, and as well as the Get Covered Illinois. We met on Monday of this week. It was a small contingent of NABIP Illinois members, as well as Big I Illinois members, that went to Chicago to meet with Director Winters, as well as Brian Gorman, and then a number of other staff at the department level on virtually on Teams to talk about, Director Winters shared briefly what he could without going into too much detail about the RFP, but going into some of the detail on the state-based exchange, what's been going on at the department level, where there are issues that they see coming, some of the goals and milestones and benchmarks that they are trying to get done. Obviously, they've done a technology RFP. There is hopefully going to be a decision on that RFP imminently. And so once that is established, we can have deeper conversations about the technology and making sure that obviously the roles of agents and brokers in the state-based exchange are protected and are enhanced. That was the goal of this is establishing an open line of communication with Director Winters and their staff heading up the state-based exchange to make sure that we are that our concerns are heard and hopefully implemented, to make sure that we close loopholes, we close gaps, we make sure that the ease of doing business for the agents and brokers as well as the consumers is seamless. And that was something that Director Winters stressed, that it is that the emphasis on, especially the first year rollout, is that it needs to be seamless, and that they did acknowledge that we have to be a partner with the department in this regard. So I was very encouraged as to, from the meeting, it's always great to have that established, first line meeting with the department and the director, who seemed very, very knowledgeable about the state-based exchange. He's done it before establishing one in Minnesota. I was very encouraged with his knowledge on the issues, his knowledge on the implementation, and some of the, in accepting the fact that there are issues out there that need to be closed, and we can help them in getting not only that agenda passed if it does require legislative change, but making sure that if there's any implementation within the technology that we can assist with to help close those, we are here to help. And I think this is going to be the first of many meetings with the department and Director Winters in getting, our goals met, as well as theirs, and working with them on trying to prioritize some of these issues that we see coming, especially in with short-term medical going away, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. But that is definitely something that has caused an issue, obviously a gap in the marketplace that needs to be closed. And with that, I do want to say too, is we have a meeting with Acting Director Ann Gillespie on September 3rd. It's going to be just Brett Gerger, Phil Lackman, and myself in that meeting. Basically, it's representing all four associations that we have legislative contracts with, to get to know Director Gillespie more. She was a sitting senator when she was appointed. Oops, let me just jump ahead real quick. She was a sitting senator from the 27th district. She has extensive experience in managed care and insurance. She before joining the General Assembly, she practiced healthcare law, served as the chair of the Illinois HMO Guarantee Association, consulted with the insurance departments managing HMO. She was involved in CVS Caremark as vice president of member communication operations. And so she worked with PBMs. She was employed by PBMs, by the CVS Caremark PBM. And that's certainly going to be an issue that is going to, I believe, going to be come up in the veto session of this year. There's continue to be subject matter hearings held on this issue, on the PBM reform bill that we had discussed for several months during session that was not passed and is going to be continued to be worked on. But I do think that that is going to come up in veto session. The governor's office has told us that that is now a priority for them. But we want to make sure that we can, obviously, we talked about the $10.49 dispensing fee. I want to make sure that that is not part of any legislation that moves in veto session. Let me go back here. So at the end of session, there were a total of 465 bills that passed both chambers, 207 House bills, 258 Senate bills. A total of 350 bills were introduced one way or another that were involved changing the way of healthcare industry operates in the state of Illinois. Bills coming from providers, insurers, regulators, pharmaceuticals, everything in between. There were 350 bills that were aimed at modifying the insurance and the health insurance industry in some way or another. That begs for a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations about these pieces of legislation and continue to work on. I don't have the final number in front of me on the number of health insurance bills that were passed that will come out in my end of session report that I'm getting very close on finishing. But there were obviously a lot of bills that were not passed this year for the better of the industry. The bills that did, we worked very, very hard on, along with Laura Minzer, who might have been the busiest woman in the state capitol, working on several issues with the governor's office and the General Assembly on modifying health insurance legislation. Obviously, we talked at length from the beginning of session until the end of session about, Governor Pritzker's healthcare agenda that he had introduced and talked about in the State of the State and budget address in the middle part of January, and that was, to remove prior authorization, ban step therapy, and remove short-term limited duration health insurance policies that I talked about. And so there were a lot of modifications that were made down towards the end of session with House Bill 5395, which was the Healthcare Protection Act. It requires the issuer of a network plan to submit self-audit of its provider directory and summary to the Department of Insurance, makes changes to the information that must be provided in network plan directory, sets forth required actions if an issuer of the department identifies a provider incorrectly listed in the provider directory, removes provisions repealing the short-term limited duration health insurance coverage. That was moved into a different bill. Towards the end of session, we were really moving to try and make sure that the STLDIs remained intact until obviously there was until like the state-based exchange began. And so they agreed to separate it and run it as a standalone. And we're hoping to defeat it as a standalone bill. However, that was not the case. There was just too much. The governor's office had too much power to get the full agenda across. Continuing on to House Bill 5395, it makes changes to provisions concerning confidentiality, transition of services, unreasonable and inadequate rates, definition of accepted benefits and step therapy requirements, off formulary exception requests, algorithmic automated review processes, utilization review criteria, and adverse determination. And so I do want to emphasize that there was a lot of effort in getting several changes made from the industry standpoint to this legislation, and really came down to finally it was Laura and the companies became neutral on the bill with those changes towards the end of session, or about towards the last day or two of session. As I said, it bans the use of insurance companies to do step therapy in regards to prescription drugs. The law now also bans insurance companies from requiring prior authorization for mental health treatments. Then, oops, that's jumped on me here. Repealing short-term limited duration policies, as I said, was a separate bill. House Bill 2499 provides that on and after January 1 of 2025, no company shall issue, deliver, amend, or renew short-term limited duration insurance policies to any natural or legal person. Provides that student health insurance coverage shall remain subject to the standards and requirements for individual health insurance coverage, except where inconsistent with specified regulations. Provides that an issuer providing student health insurance coverage or a policy or contract covering students for limited scope dental or vision shall require an individual's application or enrollment. Repeals the STLD, Short-Term Limited Duration Health Insurance Coverage Act, effective January 1 of 2025. In the governor's address, the state and budget address, he called these forms of insurance junk insurance that he said and proponents said of the legislation misled payees into believing they had more robust coverage than they actually do. Obviously, we vehemently denied that type of rhetoric and that language, that these serve a purpose within the industry and within the marketplace. And not everything is covered, not every qualifying event, or I shouldn't say not every qualifying event, but there are limited qualifying life events that open up an enrollment period. This is something that we brought up with Director Winters in our meeting, and we want to make sure that there is something that does bridge this gap. Talked about special enrollment periods, making sure that there is going to be times where an individual is left uninsured for a couple of weeks, if not longer, depending on when sometimes they lose their job, but it's because of the company closes down. It's not because they were fired. It's not all encompassing with these qualified life events that really where short-term limited duration policies come into play for an individual. So unfortunately, the bill did pass out of both chambers. We are hoping to, obviously work on bridging a gap with this bill, or with continuing to work on with the department and the governor's office policy changes that can help bridge some gaps. Obviously, and then towards the end of session too, or at the end of session, I should say, there are several omnibus bills that come through the General Assembly that are developed through working groups and task forces within the General Assembly. And Medicaid and healthcare omnibus bill is continuously to be one of those at the end of session that work all year on providing some type of an agreed healthcare omnibus bill. So Senate Bill 3268 represents that omnibus bill for Medicaid and healthcare. It's primarily the byproduct of the bipartisan bicameral Medicaid working group. Among other aspects of the bill, it authorizes various rate increases for psychiatrists, prosthetics, dialysis, adds a low volume adjustment for safety net hospitals, increases the monthly personal needs allowance for supportive living residents, eliminates prior authorization for adults on Medicaid with serious mental health to more closely align it with House Bill 5395. Creates a gold card for physicians and a new stabilization window to streamline prior authorization for emergency services. It does create new transparency requirements for PBMs. Obviously, like I said previously, a more robust PBM reform legislation is continue to be talked about and worked on, and something that will come into fruition towards, I believe, veto session of this year. Furthermore, in the omnibus bill, it expands pharmacists' allowable activities in Illinois. Legislation passed the House by a vote of 98-6. The Senate unanimously concurred, and the governor, I believe, has signed the legislation. But if you have any questions, concerns, you want to talk about, furthermore about the PAC and learn more about how we utilize funds within the state PAC for the Big I, how you can attend fundraisers and events, please do not hesitate to contact me at all. I mean, I truly text, phone, email. I'm always available to take requests, to talk about anything, any issue that you might see coming, and also talk about any issues that we could be, bring to NABIP Illinois and to our advocacy government relations committee to consider, legislation for too. So we want to make sure that we're playing a lot of defense, but we can also play offense and try and pass, legislative agendas.
Thank you, Evan. We did talk a little bit about the meeting and at the meeting with Morgan Winters and his team about a pain point that agents and members are experiencing when they lose coverage, such as, let's say someone lost coverage today, they left their job today on July 18th and picking up coverage for the 19th. And with the new restrictions for short-term plans, did you have something in mind or recommendations in mind to help fill in that gap and alleviate that pain point for extending?
I think that's something that we are going to have to come up with some language to try and bridge that gap. Obviously, we'll work with Laura Minzer. And she met with the Department of Insurance and Morgan Winters yesterday, along with the companies. She's going to give me an update today on how that meeting went. And obviously, I talked to her about these gaps and cover, obviously removing it. She's very well aware of our issues. We share the same talking points with legislators throughout the year this year. So I think it's something that we will definitely approach the department about. Again, urging that this is something that does need to be part of their legislative agenda. And if it's not, then obviously we will take up that mantle.
Right. And I thought that there were some interesting points brought up by our legislative team at our meeting with Morgan Winters. And that was approximately 58% of Illinoisans who enrolled in the 2024 FFM, that's the federal marketplace, worked with an agent. So 58% of those enrollments were agent assisted. So I just thought that that was amazing. On the screen is the slide that was shared at National Convention. So agents nationally assisted nearly 10 million consumers. Again, that's just astounding. Another map from National that just shows the states with the highest participation of marketplace enrollment here. But here's the slide that shows the 58% of the enrollment were agent assisted in Illinois. Illinois is not even, the top state. So I found that to be great news for us and our agents that we're getting so involved. We do recognize that Get Covered Illinois is on a slightly different track. They want to open the door from any point. So any point of start, whether they're starting with Medicaid or Get Covered Illinois, eventually the system that they're working on is going to connect them all to one source using this new technology. So I thought it was great for 2020, the plan year 2025, to hear that there is, a federal rollout for states that are taking over these exchanges. So for this year, for plan year 2025, we have to mimic and utilize the federal platform. So that's great news. So right now we don't have to worry about a ton of disruption. However, it sounds to me, Evan, and share your thoughts, and I know TJ's on here there as well. Sounds like plan year 2026 though is game on. They're looking for this new technology to utilize, call centers and all that ramping up. You want to talk about that for just a moment?
Yes. So obviously they're planning on a full rollout of the state-based exchange, their entire technology on January 1 of 2026. They're doing essentially a soft launch, scheduled for November 1st of 2025. In my opinion, I feel that there is going to be an extension to the full rollout. I don't believe there's too much that needs to get accomplished, not only with the technology on the state-based exchange and ironing out, all of the bugs and making sure that this is a smooth rollout. And I feel like, especially as well as hiring within the Department of Insurance and making sure that they have, the personnel within the DOI to withstand, the implementation and the rollout. I talked with Laura Minzer about that. She's also in agreement that she doesn't believe that there is any way that the department can really hit this January 1 of 2026 full rollout. That's our personal belief, just with what's been going on at the department and how slow this is from the passage and signage of the original bill from the governor's office to now. There's been so much time that's passed. They were so far behind on benchmarks that I believe that there is going to be they're going to have to delay the rollout. Whether the department will agree with that or Director Winters will agree with that, I don't believe they will. They'll continuously say that they're on track and they're meeting all their expectations. But reality is, I really think that there's going to be a delay in it. But from what they've said in the meeting, they really think that they're going to be able to do the soft rollout to mimic exactly what's on the healthcare.gov, and they're trying to make a very seamless transition to the state-based exchange. I think there's going to be a lot more challenges. And I think, our team thought there was going to be a lot more challenges into making sure that this is fully implemented by 2026.
Right, I agree. There's a lot to do there, and um, Director Winters shared that there's currently an RFP out for the technology. It sounds like there's two-part. One for the technology for the state-based exchange, and a second for the customer service center to service all those calls coming in to the state-based exchange. So, but there's some very strict criteria Director Winters and his team have put around those RFPs. So one of the questions that our team had, well, I believe it was Carrie, well, how many opportunities really are there? The RFPs are written in such a way, and it's good that we're looking for folks and these companies that are experienced. They're not startups, they're not building from scratch. They're tried and true participants and partners of other state exchanges. But do you know if there's any that they in particular have their eyes on, or any experiences there? We know Director Winters has worked on the state-based exchange in Minnesota, but not a whole lot of feedback in terms of how it's going, other than one of our carrier counterparts over there mentioned they only are seeing a 20% agent-assisted enrollments in Minnesota. Director Winters thought that was closer to 45, but again, we don't have any hard data or slides to show to prove that either way. So it's just, I think there's a lot of unknowns here, obviously, but with the strict criteria, it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of wiggle room for those that will meet that criteria for those RFPs to be finalists for a project. Would you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I think they have their eye on one, a specific one. I can't remember the name at the moment. But I would imagine that there's probably a handful of companies that are out there that meet the criteria set within the technology RFP. But I do believe that there's one out there that I believe is the target. It obviously with procurement requirements, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. He talked about, and additionally, within that technology RFP contains call centers, and how Director Winters, portrayed it is that they want, these call centers to either the technology company, whoever gets the contract, either they have their own call center within that they have implemented within their company to take on the load of the call centers, and worked with other states. That was a requirement that these call centers have to have had. This has to be at least the third state to have handled the state-based exchange call center. And so that could either be within the company, or it could have been a third-party vendor to take on the call center load. So I thought that was interesting that it is something that is two or more, I should say three or more states that have had to utilize the company in the state-based exchange and call centers. So obviously, I do believe that it very much limits it to probably less than a handful of of companies that can operate.
Yeah, it was just curious to me that it seems to have been written in such a way that
it was targeted.
Really, yeah,
definitely
it's really pointing you towards one or two, but that would even meet or exceed that criteria. So, things to watch as it unfolds. And maybe Evan, you can remind everyone, our coalition did nominate Kevin Olson at the Horton Group, and he was recently appointed. So he will be working with Director Winters and his team, correct?
Yeah, so Ken is our appointee to the State-Based Exchange Advisory Council. There were 10 members of the advisory council. The agents and brokers were allowed. We managed to get one seat, which was a big win for us. That was last year, or not this last session, but the one prior, to get that included in the legislation. So Ken Olson is our representative on that advisory council. And he'll be working with, he has developed a relationship with Director Winters so far, and is our voice in, talking about the issues, talking and making sure that we are, all of our voices are heard in the development and implementation of the state-based exchange. So we're very lucky and fortunate to have him in that role, because he's a wealth of knowledge and has been phenomenal working with and getting to where we are today.
Absolutely. He's got the track history over 25 years in the industry, and he's got the personality, I think, to work. Very even-keeled, smart, sharp guy, but he's definitely, I think, a great nominee and appointee for this position, and we'll continue to stay in touch with him as well, and perhaps get an update from him at one of our future sites. But checking the comments. Does anyone have any other questions for Evan? We do have Mike Embry with us that will be talking a little bit about National PAC.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thanks. It's great to be here. It's great to be back on the PAC board, and I see some familiar names, not all faces, but familiar. But there's a familiar face, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, and I apologize. I introduced you earlier before you were on, and I said we'll circle back to you.
That's fine. Yeah, I think I had logged in about 25 after, I think, but I know you were right in the middle of what sounded like a great ledge update. So
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. No, it's a pleasure to join you on the call. I'll be very brief. Just so everyone knows, I've been in contact with Sarah to let her know that I have been diligently trying since our convention in Chicago to get in contact with some people that we can get some good reports out, because it was Sarah and I had quite a conversation when I did receive some reports joining my first PAC board meeting in about the last, I don't know, I was last on the PAC board about 10 years ago, probably. And they being the board, had given me some reports, and there was some really kind of strange things in the report. Well, first of all, let me give you the good news. As of the last reporting period, which was at the end of June, Region 3 actually was ahead of Region 8 as far as total PAC contributions at this point in time in the year. So that's really excellent information for us. And it's something that it's always kind of been Region 8, Region 3 back and forth. But for us to actually have a lead, I think is very positive. So appreciate everyone who has been. I've got two, and I told the board this, I have two major concerns about the operation of the PAC, and I have been trying. In fact, I've sent three emails out to Caroline Musamara and one of the other people at NABIP that are in control of the PAC. Have gotten absolutely no response. And then subsequently, the end of last week, went to our RVP, Kathy Cooper, who actually works in my agency. So we have a very close relationship, and asked her to please reach out and see why it is, because I've not gotten any response. And I don't know, as we all know, there's been some shifting of personnel at NABIP. I'm hoping that Caroline is still there, but at this point in time, the jury's still out whether or not she's still there or not, because I haven't received anything. But the two objectives that I've got, and these are kind of, it's really kind of odd that these are objectives that people have had for a number of years. One of them is to get accurate reporting in a timely fashion. Number two is because when Sarah and I looked at the report, it looked like we might have had some people that in the past have been very diligent contributors to the PAC who were not showing. And my opinion is that we need to do something to better track the expiration of credit cards. Because what's happening is they're not notifying people. Another thing that I noticed, and for some of you, you may be aware, I know TJ is because he's a partner. I belong to United Benefit Advisors as a partner and have been a very strong voice on behalf of the PAC within that. And we actually had an occurrence this past year in 2023 that one of our large contributors, because they don't go to Capitol Conference or National Convention, they rely upon someone notifying them that it's time for their annual contribution. As a result of that, this person did not make a $5,000 contribution, which in actuality cost the PAC $10,000 because UBA matches up to $30,000. So it's really important to me that we have the data at our fingertips so that we can answer these questions, because I did take that report to Sarah and I said, can you take a look at this? Something looks really weird about this. And there was like a block of about 15 people in the middle of the report where everybody else was showing contributions that weren't showing contributions. And so it's something that I want to work on. But again, I apologize that I don't have the updated reports. After I get off the call, I'm going to be sending another email to say, hey, what's up? I need this information. So hopefully next, if in fact, Sarah, you ask me to join you on your call next month, I will have some information, but I'll also be sending out information as soon as I get reports, because I think it's really important that everyone in leadership within the states and within our region know where we stand from a PAC standpoint. Because as I think, unless you've been living up in the mountains with no communication, I think everybody understands the importance of this year's election.
Yes, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there. And our lobbyist, Evan Manning, was touching base on that earlier as well, that we have a lot of new people who are in office now. They are not necessarily those career politicians, but regardless, our representatives cannot be experts at everything. And our PAC helps us get in the room with the right people and support those representatives who support our industry. So we appreciate your work there. And I'm trying to look and see what it even says when it comes out on my statement. It does say on my statement, so if anyone's curious, it says NABIP space PAC for my donations. But again, I've had issues. I do a checking account auto draft. So I thought that that was easier to avoid having to worry about my credit card expiring. But
exactly,
you do what works best, obviously. But even myself, I've fallen off of there several times, and there doesn't, it's not like my checking account expired.
Right, exactly.
It's still open. So I think that a lot of us are believe we are supporting the federal PAC, but we may have fallen off unintentionally. It sounds like, Mike, that you can actually log in as a member to verify that on your own, correct?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can go out to the PAC portion of the website through the NABIP website, log in, make sure all your data is correct and things of that nature. Excuse me.
NABIP PAC altogether .nabip.org, or you can scan this QR code. And if you've given in the past, to Mike's point, you should be able to log in and see if you're active, what you've given, or if you need to update your credit card.
Yes.
But I will make sure that we send out an email to everyone with directions on how to do that. And again, the NABIP PAC is for federal. The state PAC is actually our coalition of multiple associations together that's run through the Big I. Our lobbyist, Evan Manning, talked about that a little bit as well. So I will also be including that information as well. But we appreciate your time and coming on with us. I'm sorry I introduced you before you were even on the call, so I'm glad
That's okay.
you hung with us and,
Yeah, no problem. No problem. And I'll just close with one point that in the NABIP PAC, there's two ways to donate. You can donate to the candidate fund, which are personal donations. However, we also have the admin fund, which helps to operate the PAC. And those contributions can be made from your agency. They can be corporate contributions. And so that's an additional way that you can support. And I know there's many of us that over the years have supported both sides of the ledger. So that's certainly something that you can do also. And for all of you who do contribute, I just like to say thank you. It's much appreciated. Keep it up. We'll see if we can't get these credit card expirations and large donor annual notices or something fixed so that people know to write to at the time that they want to put the checks in, because we absolutely have it. This is a overused cliche, but what I like to say is, if you're not supporting the PAC, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So that being said, everybody have a great rest of your day and the upcoming weekend. And Sarah, we'll talk soon.
all right, sounds good. Thank you all
Take
for
care,
your
Mike.
time today.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks.
Have a great Thursday and
Thanks.
the rest of your weekend. Bye,
You
everyone.
too. Bye-bye.